Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning. And today we've got a combination that I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what it can do, especially based off a test we did a few days ago with these shells just in a different version. The initial test we did with them looked like they could potentially make for decent shells, and this setup and choke combo we've got for them today has been very good and reliable. So there's a chance that we see some good looking results here today from a brand that has kind of struggled when it comes to turkey patterns. But as for that shell we've got out here today, I brought out some more of the Remington Premier Magnum Turkey shells. These ones, however, are a 12 gauge 3-inch version instead of the 3.5-inch shell we tested several days ago. They are a 3-inch 1 3/4 ounce payload of number 4, moving about 1,300 feet per second. So these are the 3-inch 4s instead of the 3.5-inch 5s. So will that make a difference? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. With 4s, you do have less shot than in a number 5 in general, so there's a chance our pattern is disappointing, but with this setup and choke combo, maybe it might actually help these out some. And as for the setup we've got here today to run them through, I brought out the Remington 1187 with this choke, which is the old Trulock 665 turkey choke that I've got. It's roughly a 25 or so year old choke, but for being a very basic 665 constriction turkey choke with no special porting or anything going on, this has been one of the best chokes that we've tested. So if these don't do well through this choke, then it's probably the shell just not being that amazing. But we'll see what happens anyway. I think this should be a decent starting point one way or the other for us. But as for the test today, everything is the same as usual. The turkey target is at 40 yards. I've also got the chronograph so we can get our velocity out of these shells. I do have some decently high hopes for this combo, considering what we've previously seen through that choke in 1187, but I think it's going to come down to what the Remington shells are capable of. So far, they have seemed to be better than the nitro turkeys, but how well can they actually do with them being number 4 shot size and you having less pellets? I guess let's go over here and take this shot and just see what kind of a pattern they're actually able to give us. Okay, so that shell gave us 1284 through the chronograph. The boss claims 1300, so we are a touch under their claim, but only 16 feet per second. That's still well within the ballpark of their claim, I'd say. So looking pretty decent up here as far as velocity is concerned, but how well did they actually perform down there at 40 yards? Let's go take a look and see what kind of a pattern we actually got. All right, now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And we absolutely do have a dead bird here. There are 4, maybe 5 through the brain there, and several more down the spine. So yeah, we would have absolutely hammered that bird with number 4s. And there's really nowhere in that turkey paper that bird can move his head to and get away from you. Our core is definitely hotter than the rest of the pattern, and for lead 4s, that's not a terrible core necessarily. Now looking at the overall pattern here, it's nothing that I would call outstanding, but it's far from the worst pattern we've ever seen at the same time. For a Remington turkey shell, that's not too bad. And I can tell you from experience, it's way better than the nitro turkey 4s would be. So not looking too terrible right off the bat, I wouldn't say. Now, of course, this pattern isn't perfect. It's nowhere near what like the Longbeard number 4 shells did for us, but our core area here is plenty good enough out to 40 yards to be able to take you a turkey all day long. It's not absolutely perfectly even. There are a couple little voids in here, but nothing too awful for what these shells are, and clearly plenty good enough out to 40 to 45 yards all day long. If we look at the outside edges, it does get a little bit more open and sporadic, which doesn't really surprise me for these being cheap Remington shells, but again, they are definitely way better than what the nitro turkeys would be. So overall here, I don't know that I was really expecting much more than this, considering these are Remington turkey shells. If that's the combo you had to work with, then yeah, you would absolutely have a 40-yard turkey pattern. Is it the prettiest or best looking number 4 pattern we've ever had? No, it's not. But it's a cheap shell that would be able to do the job for you. So now, I guess, maybe we should try it with a little bit more constriction and a little bit less less to see what happens. Maybe it likes one or the other. These are cheap shells, so sometimes they prefer a little more constriction. I don't know. I guess we should try both and see what it kind of actually likes. But as for today's test, it's not a perfect pattern, but it's way better than what it could have been. That's for sure. It would absolutely be good enough out to 40 yards or so to get you a bird all day long. Okay, and here's the wad from that shell, and as you can see, it looks a little bit banged up, but that's not really surprising considering that these are a larger shot size. This is pretty common and kind of what I would expect to see. There are some pinholes in these petals, but nothing terrible. There's nothing stuck down in there though, so that's always a plus. And although the tips are a little bit banged up, I don't necessarily think that was from anything snagging, because that choke doesn't have any kind of rifling or porting or anything like that. The rest of it is pretty much your standard Remington wad that they're using now on a lot of their shells. So nothing too strange to see, nothing too out of the ordinary. This is probably pretty much what we should expect to see out of these shells most of the time. So definitely I'd call it about normal for today's test. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that pattern right there? It's definitely not the worst number 4 lead shot pattern that we've seen, or that we could have gotten, that's for sure. It's definitely not perfect, it's not the prettiest, it's not as good as what the Longbeard number 4s would have been, but that is still a capable enough 40 yard to 45 yard turkey pattern. It does give you a little bit of leeway, but it does get a little bit sporadic around the edges, so it's definitely not perfect, but it could have been way worse as well, I suppose. But as always, leave your thoughts in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little bit surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Remington Premier turkey shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen out of them? And is there another choke or setup that you might want to see these shells run through? Let me know all that down in the comments. But if nothing else, we definitely have a decent starting point to work with here with these shells. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.